All right. Well, welcome to episode 165. Not great. We are tuning in the Sunday afternoon after the Saturday morning US time. We had to give it a little while there, I think, Craig, didn't we?
Yeah, I needed a day. I thought, oh, better content once we've slept on it. But yeah, everyone can be the judge of that.
Yeah, we are welcoming back Craig today, but it looks like we can't quite get the threesome together. Adam may well be waylaid. For now, he may hop on later on, but for now, it's just us two. Welcome back. You've missed 2 pods,
Yeah.
1 win, 1 loss, and you come back to this one.
Yeah.
So you had a good week?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. So yeah, reason was my parents were in town, so UK to the US. Spent a good week with them. It was really fun, obviously. Gave me a chance to catch a couple of the games in a pub and stuff like that, and just sort of enjoy their time here as well. So that was really good. As far as results are concerned, it was middle of the road. We saw some we saw an abject performance, but speaking of abject, we'll get to that today. But yeah, it was very good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, definitely. Have your parents ever been to Chicago before?
They have, yeah. So they've been here 2 years ago. So we'd done like the Uber touristy stuff then. So like this time around, it was the neighborhoods, those sort of nuanced things that you would do when you're showing someone around Chicago. So as far as I'm aware, they had a great time. So
well, they won't tell you otherwise. Yeah, thanks, son. It was shit. See ya. I think I'm going to make a PSA here before we even get into it. Graham Potter went on record saying this was his worst game in his 2.5 years as an Albion manager. What we saw yesterday was, to me, up there with the 5-0 against Bournemouth in terms of the worst Premier League performances I think I've ever seen from the Albion. We're going to be critical and we're going to say not very nice things because it was very poor. I think I speak for both of us and Adam, if and when he pops on, that we do not want Potter sacked and we don't think Tony Bloom is a fraud. And we are still very happy with the way the Albion are performing as a whole. But today's podcast is mostly going to be criticizing that piece of shit performance.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up as well, because that's the thing, and having that conversation of we're going to talk about a snapshot in time about one specific game. It's by no means detracting from what we've done the rest of this season, but as we've said, it is going to be a lot of bad, and we'll try and sugarcoat it as much as we can, but. Like you said, that this is one game out of 38, and I think we need to take a little bit of perspective out of that. But it doesn't mean that we can't ignore what just happened.
Yeah, Alex in the chat is starting nice and quickly out of the traps here. Can we even call yesterday a performance? Great question. Honestly, one for the philosophers, because I would argue that there's a good reason to say no. Let's start where it all went wrong, really. I've seen a couple of people online say the tactics were all wrong. I feel like the tactics were rather enforced. We started off the day with a back four of Cucurella, Webster, Duncan, Veltman against Manchester United. All change this time. Lamptey and Cucurella stayed, but we had to shift over to Shane Duffy and Veltman. No Webster, out with a groin niggle, should be back for Villa. Potter's already said that he expects him fit and ready to go. And Dunk serving that 1-game ban, obviously, for the mess at Manchester United. Pascal Gross also out of the side. Alexis McAllister in, Adam Lallana in as well, and then Welbeck in and Trossard on the bench. Like I said, there's already been chat about the fact that people thought that it was a bit of a tactical disaster class. I'm not even going to go that far for myself, because I feel like we were destined for a very bad day at the office from the minute that we had no choice but to field Veltman and Duffy at centre-half.
Yeah. I think I'm with you completely on that. It's just, when I saw the team sheet come out an hour before, we knew there'd be enforced changes. I was hoping Webster would start. I think I was hoping he was at least going to play a part. for those that were, I guess, tuning in from a US broadcasting perspective, there's the first couple of 10 minutes or so, they were talking about Dan Burn, and we'll get to that and all of that sort of stuff. But I mean, you were talking around, having those options at centre back and having Duffy and Veltman. We're so well equipped at the back that having these two defenders out and Duncan Webster wasn't going to affect us too much. I think all of us saw just how much it did affect us. And I think that back four there with two centre backs that wouldn't be playing if the other two are fit, in that position at the very least, Veltman would probably be moved out wide. But it was telling, especially, and we'll get on to what happened in the first half and I guess the capitulation in that first half as well. But yeah, I was worried as soon as I saw that team sheet that you're asking of a back four with Lamptey and Cucurella, who are very, very well drilled in being up and down the park. We're asking them to do something very different, not only with a less than full strength back two, should we say. So that combined with Trossard not starting, and I guess for what you would call four centre midfielders on the pitch, in Lallana, Moda, McAllister, and Basuma. It seemed very dominant in the middle of the pack with a very less than desired centre pairing. So I was worried from the outset, and unfortunately, we saw what happened.
Yeah. From the outset, it just went appallingly, didn't it? It was Enoch on the door in the chat says they didn't realize we were getting 2 GB boxing fights this week, and the Khan Brook fight was wonderful. I would love to know what anybody was drinking if they thought Amir Khan was going to win that fight. But it was predictably just two old men swinging. It felt like at this point, given that their feud started when I was 14 years old. Yeah, like you said, it was not really great from the beginning. We were very centrally dominated. I feel like when you're going to play those sort of four level of midfielders, those all four midfielders that like to be central, I think you've got to have Trossard to complement them, who loves to roam around out wide. We didn't. We had Welbeck yesterday, and it felt like he was very much focused down the middle. On occasion, he drifted out wide, but for the most part, he was pretty central as well. We were told by the Burnley podcast that Adam guest hosted with the fella that they have suddenly become, just out of the January window, really this pressing side that likes to play the ball on the floor. Didn't have much of a choice yesterday with the wind. I think they had to try and learn to play the ball on the floor one way or another. And they pressed us massively at the back. Veltman, for me, is clearly not a 2 centre-back pairing. He is a 3-man centre-half and very good at it. But a 2-man centre-half, Joel Veltman is not. I look back and he actually never really played outside of a 3 at Ajax ever. They were always a 3 generally, so that makes sense. Not good, though. Pressured from the offset. Veltman and Duffy, not the greatest players to have holding the ball a lot as they're being pressed. And it showed from the start. They were not well equipped to deal with Weghorst. We'll probably talk about him a lot today. However much Albion fans won't like it, I thought he was superb. He was. Yeah. We were awful, but he made us look even worse with how well he played yesterday. Yeah. And like you said, that capitulation, they hit the bar about 8 minutes in, I think. And then within 20 minutes they were 1-0 up, and it was massively deserved, wasn't it? Weghorst on the score sheet. And we never really looked back from there. And as Enoch said, we started fighting immediately almost afterwards with Duffy and Sanchez, and it was just a mess from the word go.
Yeah, and I think was one thing, and we talked about Potter and what he said after the game, and our PSA at the top of this pod, but that is a very impressive high press that Burnley have got going, and they knew exactly what they were doing. We won't take anything away from Sean Dyche and how good he is as a manager in getting something out of relatively little. You have a very high press, you know those two centre backs don't do well with that pressure, and then everything starts falling in accordance to the plan. And the one thing that you will want to do against this Brighton team is go 1-0 up, especially when we're at home, and then look to frustrate us in being very compact once you've got that goal, and you can start to develop more of a defensive plan. So when it comes to Weghorst, he's done absolute bits in Bundesliga. I think those that watch European or German football know how good he is. It's still a surprise to me that he ended up at Burnley, but this is exactly what you get with him. He's clinical, he's big, he's very pressing. It's something that he's been doing for years, and like I said, it's an upgrade on Chris Wood for Burnley. I think they'll be laughing.
For a third of the price, even. Maybe even
Incredible.
Slightly less than that, because I think it was about 7 million, wasn't it? And that's 2 signings in 2 windows, isn't it? That you think, what on earth are they doing going to Burnley? Cornet and Weghorst, and they were both pretty impressive yesterday at causing us all sorts of problems. Another thing to touch on, because again, it was just a mess all the way through. Lamptey and Cucurella are also not a particularly effective fullback duo, are they, in a back four? Both want to go forward with so many central players playing. They saw so much space, they took it, and we were then just constantly on the back foot whenever that counter-attack came on. And Burnley, who are normally not a team known to be able to counter-attack, had that perfect storm, like Alex said in the chat yesterday, of the Weghorst Cornet combination. It was almost perfect, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I guess part of the reason why I mentioned 4 central midfielders on the pitch is because we didn't have the wide options. And you're playing a back four where the expectation is that left and right back do go up and down as much as they can, with, I guess, less coverage at the back of the centre pairing that you do have. It's all well and good having 3 centre defenders when you have bombing wing backs, but trying to play in a wing back mentality when you're in a back four, especially with the impetus on the wing backs attacking as part of our plan, I thought it was wrong. Like I said, and like we said, sorry, those changes were enforced, and injuries counting for it. Like we said, it's just a number of things that have gone wrong. But the way that we were still trying to play with the left back and sort of that wing back mentality that I'm alluding to, we didn't really have a lot of options in the wide areas, which is why I thought we missed Trossard a lot in that first half.
Yeah, we really did, didn't we? 1-0 down. They still look like the better team for a lot of it. But it's worth noting we had our opportunities, didn't we? Because just because we were beaten pretty comprehensively. Adam Lallana, that header, I can't remember whether we were 2-0 down at the time and it was just before our time, whether it was in between the two. I'm pretty sure it was right before the Brownhill goal.
It was, it was straight up the other end, wasn't it?
And I know we've said this a bunch of times, like, who's going to score the goals if it isn't Maupay or Trossard? Well, it clearly isn't going to be Adam Lallana. He had a free header yesterday in the middle of the box, like 8 yards out, and couldn't hit the target. And that goal goes in. You don't have to be at your best to start grinding out a result at that point. You've got a goal back, and you're looking in a really good spot right before half time. And like you said, straight up the other end. Bit fortunate, I think, for Brownhill, but Burnley are never going to turn those down.
Yeah, and like you said, you get some of those, don't you? A nice deflection here and there. So yeah, you take those, but it's really poor. From Lallana's standpoint, you have to be hitting the target on that, and again, it's synonymous with what we've seen with Lallana as well, where he just isn't up to par in that goal scoring ability. And I think we've said on previous podcasts as well, he's had that one purple patch of a season where he did score 8 for Liverpool, but he's never really been that sort of goal shipping midfielder that maybe people are misaligning their expectations on. Lallana does not score goals. So it's where do they come from then? If Welbeck is trying to fit through the middle, and we look so central, and there's nothing going on in the wings, where are we getting that from? And towards the end of that first half, you saw the intricate passes, and we saw some openings there. But ultimately, you're spot on. You score that header, you go into halftime at 1-1, hopefully, and you sort of try and build the next game plan from there. Instead, you sort of get sucker punched with that second goal, especially with a fortunate double deflection. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a mountain to climb at home to Burnley at half time, where typically we let in a goal a game. It was, I think, easy to stress how weird this game was from a performance perspective, quote unquote, because I don't know whether we class it as that. So it was a tough one, but I think we saw it from the outset anyway. Right? Is that I was watching that game and we were talking in the chat. As soon as we went 1-0 down, I think I turned around and said to my dad, I was like, this could be 2 or 3, because I can't see where we're going to improve here. I think we were just off the boil everywhere.
Yeah. There's a couple of things in the chat I wanted to talk about. Alex in the chat said it was like a perfect storm, because there's some of these things we're definitely going to talk about still. No Dunk, no Webster, no Trossard. Bizuma still on holiday. A lack of fans thanks to Southern Rail. Poor weather conditions. Players arguing, all summed up with our only shot on target being a left-footed strike from Shane Duffy from about 30 yards. Enough said. Enoch on the door. Ironically, we could really do with Weghorst. Gives us more than Welbeck. Yeah, we were asking for a taller striker. I've been asking for a taller striker for about 3 years on this podcast. Onuachu obviously is my boy. Weghorst, I always figured we wouldn't be able to get him. Clearly, we could have if Burnley could. So they're out there at reasonable prices. So it gives us an option, and he would provide much more than Welbeck on any day, I think. And then Merrick UK in the chat. Burnley won, absolutely, but I don't think I'll be giving them so much praise. We had a very clearly bad day at the office, and they were there to take advantage. It was much more we were rubbish than Burnley were good. As said, we were missing our first choice centre-backs. Merrick, I'm not going to disagree with you too much there. The fact of the matter is, after watching the game and looking back at it, there's not a huge amount of players I look at in that team where I think they played really well. But I do look at Weghorst and think he was excellent. We were poor, but like I said, I think he took advantage of every single bit of that and turned, lemons into lemonade in terms of just he turned it into gold. He scored, he assisted, and was just an absolute thorn in our side all the way until Ashley Barnes came on for him towards the end. And that was really just a shithousery time waste, wasn't it?
It's beautiful, isn't it? I do, from those that appreciate the that sort of vintage. But yeah, there's also another build there where we've seen season after season where we do come up against these teams and they seem to be having a bad day and we don't take advantage of it. So there's that sort of element there where there's obviously a stellar performance from a centre forward that arguably could maybe be the signing of the season if he does the bits at Burnley that he's capable of doing, along with Cornet up top, like a silly pairing. But also the credit of taking advantage when we are having a bad day. We've seen those where we knock on the door, have 20, 25 shots, and we draw 0-0. At least they were able to make it, but we made it so easy for them, and that. I guess we'll talk second half. We'll talk about Duffy and Sanchez right now, but the third goal just encapsulates just how much of a bad day it was.
Yeah, and that was part of the problem, I think, because the second half began, we reverted to a 3. We brought on within 10 minutes. We had Solly-March and Trossard on, Moda and Lallana off. I thought they were good substitutions. I was like a bit more width, a bit more pace, and we provided it. And I thought there was that entire time. Up until the third goal, I was thinking, we could, if we get one, they're going to start shitting their pants here. And it looked like we could have got one. I thought we were much the better side come that second half. We dominated all the important stats, bar in the one of putting the ball in the back of the net. It was our most, like I said, threatening part altogether. Burnley looked totally rattled. They couldn't thread a pass together. I just looked here. They had 59% pass success percentage at that point, and 27% of the ball in the second half up until the goal. We were all over
Yeah.
them. We weren't able to take advantage of that pressure. And right after Evan Ferguson comes on, the poor lad, made his debut in the Premier League, taking off Welbeck. Again, another good substitution. I probably would have rather have seen earlier because I thought he was totally ineffectual yesterday. They go straight up the other end, and Aaron Lennon, of all people, slots in the third for what was the perfect cherry on top of a shit day.
Yeah, and it's just a sucker punch as well, isn't it? Where we're starting to get into that passage of the game. We made them on 55 minutes. I guess the impatient side of me was like, why are we waiting when that was such a horrible first half? Could see that coming together and not changing anything at half time. I thought maybe we could have done that sooner, but Graham Potter is where he is and I am where I am. The 20 minutes in the second half, obviously they're a little bit nervous. They know that we're going to try and make a push for this second half and we're going to really come at them. And I thought it was a really good sort of 20 minutes. But yeah, just some more really bad defending to let Aaron Lennon be in that position in the first place. Ridiculous finish, obviously, but that's by the by. He shouldn't be in that position anyway, where he's free at the 15, 16 yard line and being able to put it in the top corner. So just to say, and from that point it's game over, right? You're 3-0 down at 70 minutes and all of a sudden it's like, well, we can't really see a way back here. And poor Ferguson as well, just 17 years old, comes on a minute later, you're 3-0 down and he's got scraps to feed off. There was no push after that. I think it was just a bit of dejection and sort of petered out towards the end. It was very frustrating, really frustrating to watch. And it's one of those instances where they score two critical goals at the perfect time that you could possibly score them. We go up in the first half and they get a sucker punch 2-0, and then we start building a passage of play, and then one sort of really bad defensive plan and suddenly it's 3-0. They took their chances. Their XG was 0.62 and we lost 3-0. So
Paz was 0.60 and they were 0.62, like you say, something like that. It was
that's I think the disparity in goals scored versus expected goals. They shouldn't be in those positions and they shouldn't be scoring from those positions. So that's what it's telling you. So it really tough. And yeah, like I said, there's no point talking about the last sort of 20 minutes or so, barring one or two, because it really just was a done deal from then.
Yeah. One thing I do want to get over towards the player sort of stuff, because there's a lot of players to not be polite about. But do you know one player I'm not going to be slating? And what's odd about it is that we lost 3-0 at home to Burnley, and we dominated the ball for large parts of the game, right? Like we had, I think it ended up with 66% or something like that. I can't remember now. We had a bunch of the ball. Sanchez had 45 touches of the ball. He had loads of it. He was, asked to, in the same way that we were dominating possession, we were doing the classic build up from the back, slowly, and getting beat 3-0 at home at the Amex. With the way Sanchez has been of late with his distribution, past me would have put money on the fact that we would have been blaming Sanchez for a lot today. Given the fact that it seems a perfect storm game of you lost 3-0 at home at the Amex to
blame the keeper.
The ball. He must have given away at least two bad passes. I don't think he did anything wrong yesterday, really. I think there was two clearances he had to kind of shank because he had no choice. But I don't think any of those three were particularly savable. No,
I don't think so. Again, you put sort of any keeper in those scenarios as well. The Lennon one you're not getting to. The Brownhill one, double deflection, and the Veghorst one is a fantastic finish. So, so ignoring the fact that he couldn't do a lot about those three goals, maybe the second one if you're being very pedantic. Like you said, distribution good. I think we could probably talk about his shouting and coming for balls, maybe.
Yeah.
But when it comes to pass distribution and being able to set up the plays as he does as that sweeper keeper role as well, I don't think a lot of blame can be put on the goalkeeper's shoulders. Like you said, it's very easy for us to do that if you lose 3-0 at home. But I don't think he was as to blame as some of the other players.
Yeah. Alex in the chat seen a couple of comments about Sanchez not being good enough on the subreddit. Those people probably thought Alisson or Ederson weren't going to be good enough at 24 as well.
Yeah.
Still a very young man. Still only, this isn't even, he hasn't even played a full season of Premier League football. This is his second season of football. And you've got to give him time to develop. He is getting better in lots of ways. He's still got things that he needs to work on. I think anybody kind of saying he's not good enough or anything like that, for me, I think are a little bit short-sighted in that we have a homegrown goalkeeper that is still only 24 and there's not a huge amount of times where I get too worried about him, especially when it comes to shot stopping. I think he's excellent. And for the most part, he's a big lad, good with the ball at his feet. That's just what he needs to work on. The best goalkeepers in the world need to work on it. They're all prone to erratic distribution. So,
yeah, I think let's tackle the Duffy Sanchez undercard fight, shall we? Just around what happened there, and I think just for complete context, it looks, to me personally, it looks like Sanchez has called that and has come out, and either Duffy hasn't heard it or it wasn't loud enough. And they've sort of come into a bit of an altercation where tension is high because we're currently trying to break down a very high press, and it's very frustrating because Burnley were doing a good job in that respect. It's just a very strange one. And obviously the media is pouncing on it and everyone is pouncing on it around, what happens there. But these are professional footballers that are paid a lot of money to win football games. So they are going to get frustrated and they are going to have disagreements. And sometimes you will see them. We've seen it. Ask Kieran Dyer and Lee Bowyer, as well. So, it's part of the parcel for me. I think, it's just a case of tensions running high. I don't think there's too much to read in it for me personally anyway.
Yeah, I think for those two, I think you're pretty much spot on. I agree with pretty much everything you just said. It was very much a passionate situation, and neither one would back down on what they thought they were doing was right. So, a big lad like Sanchez is with that Spanish blood running through him, and Shane Duffy is Shane Duffy. So I don't imagine either are known to back down, particularly when they think they're in the right. So I think that was just one of those things. And like you said, frustration has got to be born out of that, right? Like we were shit, and no one likes being crap. And so I imagine that was part of it.
To be clear, the players know it more than anyone else when it's going wrong, right? Is that we watch it religiously because we're diehard Brighton fans, but no one knows it more than those players on the pitch when it's not going right. They're fully aware of the fact that this is all going to pot. So they're bound to be annoyed by that, and those sort of things happen. And like you said, it's the young Spanish guy with the maturity that he has and the confidence that he has up against an Irish brick shit house. I mean, I would pay $50 to see it.
It'd probably be a bit better than the one we saw last night, honestly. Left a lot to be desired. Let's talk about Bissouma. Because I am part of the conspiracy theory group that something is very wrong with Mr. Bissouma. He is not the same player post AFCON that he was before. Sure, he played very well in, I think it was Watford he played, and played very well. But he is not the same man attitude-wise. He is not dancing to any tequila songs. He is not interested in laughing and joking with anybody. We beat Watford 2-0 in a very comfortable performance. He was straight down the tunnel. No celebrations, no happy faces, gone. We got beat by Manchester United. He was very poor that day. Straight down the tunnel again, first off the pitch. Very unhappy indeed. And then yesterday, arguably again, one of the worst players on the pitch. That third goal, 99 times out of 100, Bissouma takes that ball off of that player's feet. I think it was Rodriguez, takes it off of his feet, and we sprint counter attack. I watched him choose not to put his foot in yesterday. And predictably, straight off the pitch at the end of the game, one of our worst players. What is going on here? Has he really had his head turned by Aston Villa? Like, is the money that big? Were they offering him that much and we've turned it down? Or are contract negotiations behind the scenes not going like he would like them to? We saw it with Dunk way back when.
Fulham,
Fulham. I was at that one as well, so that was spicy. And then, is it that, or is it something gone on at Mali when he was away? It's something going on there, or is it just a case of he's just not on it, and it's so unusual to see him so off of it that he is as annoyed as us? What do we think?
It's so apparent, isn't it? You're seeing such a drop in, I guess, a performance, or I say performance, a drop in just the mentality of a player, or the perceived mentality of the player. You have someone, like you said, dancing around, being the nicest person to watch and see react with fans and supporters, to suddenly turning into this borderline hermit that doesn't really want to be, around that, and seems to be going through the motions as opposed to enjoying his football and really putting himself out there. It's a difficult one. I think it's important to note that there's a lot surrounding that one human being at the moment, with still technically under investigation. You've got a lot of transfer talk. You've just gone through the AFCON as well, where you're going back to your home country. There's been a lot that's been surrounding that person for a month to a month and a half. But flip side, the other coin, they're being paid very handsomely to do this job, and they have the advantage of having that sort of comfort surrounding them. So you would expect performances not to drop as dramatically as they have. I am very confused, as much as the next person, just around what's happened here. I would be very reluctant to say that he's had his head turned by Aston Villa, who are currently also on a losing sort of run, shall we say, or a less than desired run when it comes to results.
Speaking of bad defeats to bottom three sides.
Yeah. There's something in common there, so he wouldn't be getting away from that either. So it's a tough one. I don't think anyone knows where his head's at right now. I would be I'd be disappointed if he was looking for that Aston Villa thing and he's now dragging his feet because he didn't get what he wanted, or it could be contract negotiations. Like you said, I don't know. There's a very good point that I hadn't actually thought about, but he's got a year and 4 months left on his contract. I'm sure there's a little bit of stress there, and okay, where am I going? Who am I going to be with? So I just hope that whatever it is, it gets cleared up, because he is one of our most important players, irrespective of what people think. When he's playing well, we tend to play well, and you can see what happens when he doesn't play well. I'm not going to blame him solely, because across the board yesterday we were pants. So it's one of many issues, but typically when Bissouma's playing well, we play well and we get a result, and that's pretty much the crux of it.
Yep. Alex in the chat, he thinks it's because we got used to him such a high level. The drop is significantly more noticeable. I agree. If I had to guess with zero knowledge whatsoever, I would also guess that it's contract negotiations. We are not going to be having nothing to do with him. We're not going to be talking. We're not going to be talking about it, right? Like Brighton are not going to be in conversations with Bissouma and his agent constantly about seeing if they can keep him on, because he's so good. He is the difference between 9th and 7th on his day. And that's the difference between Europe and not, which is a huge, huge moneymaker. I think that, to me, he's been turned down a move in January, and I suspect that they are now in full contract negotiations as to what we're going to do here, what promises are being made for the summer, blah, 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 blah. And I suspect he is just not happy with some of the things that are coming out of it, or maybe he's not happy with what his family have to say about it, given that it's just been international. Maybe he's not happy with what his agent's trying to push, given that, you know, he's been told this. Maybe he's not happy with people who are telling him and whispering in his ear that X or Y club want him. I don't know what that part is, but if I had to totally guess with zero knowledge whatsoever, which is generally what newspaper journalists do anyway, so we're on the same level, that would be my hazard of a guess, because it seems the right time for those negotiations to be going on.
And it also fits with what Brighton potentially are offering him versus what he maybe feels that he deserves. You know, you're talking around a wage structure that is quite tight when it comes to our club and what we can offer. So obviously he could move to anywhere and get 6 figures a week. And that's a given, because I think he knows that. But as to what Brighton can possibly afford or is looking to spend on wages, that may be where the disparity is. Again, zero knowledge. I'm not basing this off anything that I've read or heard about. But if the murmurings and the talk in his ear is saying you can earn 125 grand a week by going to this place, and you're currently on X amount here, and they won't offer you that, then, you know, football is a very short career. We've heard this a lot more in recent years, that you have a very small period of time to make as much money as possible to set you up for the rest of your life. So there obviously will be people in his ear to say, take the right deal or do something, because life is short. So let's just hope that it gets sorted out. I really do hope that we're pushing to keep him, because like you said, he is the difference.
Yeah, I'm sure there's got to be. They're not just going to be like, yeah, just go. Like, there's no way. They're going to be doing everything in their power, I'm sure, to see how and which way possible they can keep him.
I guess on the other side is, you know, we've seen it with Ben White, and we've seen it with you know, Dan Burn. We're not going to stand in the way if we think the valuation is right. So, you know, it may be that, okay, if it is far exceeding what our structure allows us to do we just cash in? So, and I guess that's the weird, I guess, balance that we're in here is, you know, we have this player who is, in my mind, Champions League quality, and we're not going to be in the Champions League in the short term right now. So do we cash in and look to strengthen our position with younger players coming through? Or do we say, look, you are pivotal, and he is, you are pivotal for us reaching that next step, and do we amend our structure or the way that we do things in order to facilitate that?
Yeah, Alex in the chat has a good theory. Let's just blame Naylor for trying to push his Athletic article on deadline day that looked like we had a second bid. Yeah, hard to argue with that one. He's still getting a lot of bad rep from us for that.
Yeah, especially Adam. So yeah, mention it to Adam on Twitter and see what he thinks.
Yeah, I would. Definitely would. At Edwards Adam, I think it is. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? And I think that, and I was just thinking this as you were talking about how important he is, and Alex in the chat talking about his high level. Webster and Dunk return next week. I suspect both will go straight into the side, given what we just saw, which means that the main problem should be fixed, right? We've got back our first choice centre halves. Whether we choose to play a 3 or a 2, we're good with that, because Veltman is perfectly good in a back 3. And it gives everybody else license to do what they need to do. If we continue with these games, Villa are not a particularly good side right now. They're in awful form. People are even starting to talk about Gerrard out, which is hilarious and music to my ears. But as Alex said in the chat, his level is so high that when the drop is coming in, and we saw it against United and we saw it this weekend, it's really significant to see. Against a team like Villa, who are not as good as United and are in terrible form, the stark difference of him, if he continues to play at that manner with Webster and Dunk back, he's going to stick out like a sore thumb. If we were to play Trossard and Dunk and Webster, he's going to have nowhere to hide because generally Trossard brings the best out of Mopé, so you can't blame it on him. And we've got no awful centre-half pairing that shouldn't ever really be getting game time outside of the fluke that we got this week. He's going to stick out like a sore thumb if he decides to go at 60%.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so important about this next game is, we talk about the bounce back, and it's such a football cliche that we need to go and, think about the next game. Let's just, get this one out of the way. Let's not think of that again, and let's carry on. I think you're spot on. They're at full strength with no arguments. There will be no complaints if we put in a performance like that again, across the board, not just Basuma, but for the other players that did have a subpar game, which is the majority of them. No one was at their standard or yesterday. I'll be completely honest. We talked loosely about who's not to blame as opposed to who's to blame, and that gives you a good sense as to what we think. So it's important that we see a very good performance next week. Like you said, if there isn't and one person stands out, we can then start to speculate a little bit more, and we can continue with our conspiracies. I think it'll be very telling if we see a less than standard performance from Basuma. And I think to Alex's point, I think you're right. We've come to expect such a high level from that one player, that when we don't get it, everything else seems to fall down around him as well. So it'll be important. I think that one game will tell us if we get another performance from him like we did with Man United and with Burnley, we will know categorically that something is up.
Yeah. Let's talk about man of the match, which just it feels so stupid to even talk about it. For me, I'm going on that didn't do as much wrong as the rest, and I'm going to go with Mopé. I felt like he really didn't do a great deal wrong yesterday. I thought he still managed to piss off every central defender they had. The two chances he had were just, so difficult to take advantage of. But he at least looked like a centre forward and bothered teams, as opposed to Danny Welbeck, who played for 70 minutes and had 14 touches of the ball yesterday. An Aaron Connolly-esque performance, it felt like. Honestly, though, to me, he didn't do a great deal wrong. I suspect I know who you're going to say, so I'm not going to say them as well. So who else have you got on deck?
I mean, you could say, well, for me, I could say the same about, McAllister and Moda as well. They didn't really have a lot to feed off of, and they were trying. I think that's the key thing for me, is that at least we were trying to make things happen. So yeah, it's probably, like I said, it's slim pickings, and regardless of who I choose, there will be disagreements. But if I'm looking just for pure effort and trying to make things happen, the Mopés and the McAllisters for me, just trying, just at least try something. There was some good passages there with some intricate passes, especially at the 20 minutes after the halftime that we saw, but very slim. And I think there's a special mention to Solly March as well. He gets a lot of crap. At least he came on and tried to be direct and try and do something. Like I said, there's not really a standout. There isn't, and I think, like you said, we're choosing the least worst as opposed to the man of the match.
Yeah, no, I'll double stamp Solly March. He looked our best player for the entire time he was on the pitch. Again, that kind of left wing back role suits him. It's a shame that we have someone who is going to be world class within the next 18 to 24 months playing there instead.
It's such a shame. It really is.
Like, what are you supposed to do? And not only that, but it just so happens that he's 4 years younger than Solly March. It sucks for Solly.
Matters. Yeah, I mean, a spinner. One positive from me, if I can try and find one, is that a Ferguson Premier League debut, obviously in the worst way possible, but to have a 17-year-old that we deem good enough to bring off the bench in a Premier League game can only mean good things for him. Get him embedded, get him that experience as early as we can without forcing it on him. Did I think it was probably there was probably a better game to introduce him? Yes, but coming on at 2-0 down with the pressure off you, that was probably the right choice. It's just a shame about the third goal.
Yeah. It, like you say, it was not, in hindsight, it was an awful game to pick because they immediately went up and scored. At 2-0 down, chasing the game, looking for just lots of offensive options. It was a good option for us. Looking at that 60 seconds later, it's like, oh no, there wasn't much to go from. Must have been really shit. In terms of I'll give you two other positives that I found. First one is that I feel like we kind of needed this after the fact that we are sitting in 9th place. We're playing very well. Everybody's kind of talking about Europe and all this sort of stuff. I think we needed these games to know that we are not at the level of Manchester United, because we are never going to have those refereeing decisions go our way, and we have to be at our very best to beat a team at their level, no matter how shit they are, because they will get those rubs of the green. And then just to be reminded that we are Brighton and Hove Albion. This is a team that had only ever had one win in the Premier League this season, and Weghorst had not yet scored. It's the most quintessential Brighton defeat of all time, isn't it? Of course you're going to lose 3-0 at home to this team. It just feels like anybody who's been supporting for Brighton since the Withdean days and beyond, it's exactly what you expect from this team. That's what we do. We did it in the Championship under Poyet, under Oscar, under Houghton even. We dominate teams, and then we go on the piss and forget about what we're doing, and we end up losing the title with the Championship on the last day. That's Brighton. Like this result is exactly what you expect. It feels like.
I wouldn't have it any other way either, to be honest. It's just become a running gag now, more than anything else. That just like, oh, if there's a team on a losing streak or hasn't won in 10, 15 games and they're coming to play Brighton, you know we'll do them a favor and give them that reprieve that they need. But you're spot on in all seriousness. Like it's a reality check as to where we are. We've been doing really well this season, and I'm like we said at the top of the pod, this is not based on the fact that we have been doing really well this season and we have been getting those results that maybe we didn't get before, but it's not always going to go our way. These games do happen. You do have just a shock to the system where we haven't played that well, and to Potter's comments as well, probably the worst performance under his tenure so far, and I would be inclined to agree with him. So something went very, very wrong, whether it was enforced changes or whether it was just an abject performance all round. But hopefully it means that, okay, let's not get too complacent. We are 9th. We can't just rock up to the Amex and beat Burnley 2-0 and as comfortable as maybe we did with Watford. We do need to stay on our game at all times in order to be in that top half.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of teams out of form and needing a reprieve, Aston Villa next week. Their last 6 is not great reading for them. They have lost to Brentford, drew with Manchester United, which looked pretty good. Scraped a 1-0 win away at relegation-threatened Everton. Drew with Leeds, that 3-3 thriller that was just defense was optional that day. And then they just have back-to-back defeats away at Newcastle 1-0 and then at home to Watford 1-0. Not great.
Similar, and just again like a late one at Watford as well. And like you said as well, just starting to get on the back. I've said this before in our chat, and for any Villa fans that may tune into this before the game, just with the Coutinho and the money that's being spent around, just a sense of entitlement from the fans a little bit that actually, they're still a work in progress. You have spent a lot of money and there is a good team in there. But again, it's not going to go all your way. So it'll be an interesting one. Like you said, we're all about doing other teams a favor. So I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, they are almost, I'm looking at the table, they are almost like a antithesis of us. We're sitting here with 7 wins, 12 draws, and 6 defeats. They have over double the amount of defeats we've had this season. They have 13 losses to their loss column, and only 3 draws, and 1 more win than us. So we're pretty average in that respect. But
that's pretty gung ho. I said, a 50% lose rate? Are we on 26 games now?
They are on 24, so they're on more than that.
Wow.
Yeah, not great.
So for a team that loves the draw against a team that hates it, so well,
Yeah,
see how that
should
goes.
be an interesting one. We are at home, which is not our best place to be. Just to touch on that actually, because I saw a lot of people on Twitter yesterday saying how bad our home record is compared to our away record. Not as bad as you would think it would be, given that comment. We've only won one more game away than we have at home. We've won 3 at home and 4 away this year. So it may feel like it because you're going to the Amex every week and you're not maybe making as many away games, but we are not as bad at home as some people think. We're not great.
Yeah.
We are just outside the bottom 3 in home performances, and in away performances we're in Europe. So I get it, but it is a matter of 1 win's difference. This is very much a game we can win this weekend coming up. Villa are, like we said, not in the best of form. Coutinho, Watkins, all these players are very good. They have a really nice, fine mixture up there, but I still think they can be got at defensively.
And that's, I think, testament to what we, the optional defending at Leeds and some of the aspect there and what they're trying to do. We like playing against teams that are going to attack us. So in that respect, with all their riches up front and just being able to contain them, if Dunk, Webster play, and Sanchez, Cucurella, Lamptey are all there, I do think Veltman's probably going to come in for Lamptey, and I don't think he's going to start against Villa, purely for that reason. I think he's going to try and pocket one of the wingers that Veltman likes to do so nicely. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, just with us counter-attacking that Villa defense to try and get at them and hopefully get a result. Like I said, that I think there is a disparity. I say there's a perceived disparity between home and away, maybe because when we try and attack and we don't get we love being counter-attacked. So that tends to happen more at home than it does away.
Yeah, like Alex said in the chat, home form only 16th, away form only 7th. But those draws are the difference. You're not seeing particularly many more wins away from home. We're just able to take draws away from those games more so than defeats. Yeah. Again, something we've got to improve on. The Amex has been a problem for a while. Potter even started resorting to doing away day prep for home games. I don't know if you remember that a couple of years ago. And it actually seemed to work, which was utterly bizarre. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. 2 teams in desperate need of an injection. Only one of them is going to get it, because for me, a draw at home against Villa, I would take it to get us back on track. I feel like Villa would expect to come here and get more than that, because they are Aston Villa. And as you say, it feels like that's the mentality they have. Anything else from you?
Just there's a few bits, and I think social media is king. We're talking about home games and the atmosphere surrounding it. We're sort of far away, and we're not part of that sort of atmosphere, so we can only watch it on TV. But we've seen a fair few comments, especially from Alex as well, around Southern trains and being able to get to the stadium first and foremost because of the storm that's recently hit the UK. But it's been a cause of concern for some people for a while around the atmosphere and the home ground, and maybe that having an impact on the performances. As you've very nicely put it statistically, it doesn't look like it has too much of an impact. But I know that it is a concern. So I don't really know what we do about that. There's a few bits there that I think the club need to address, whether that's the ticket exchange and being able to exchange those tickets without a £20 fee, or whether there's some other alternatives. There's lots of options that are floating around there, not all of which are completely soundproof. But I just wanted to, obviously we're going to get a few thoughts around the people in the chat and the people listening to this, just around, okay, if there is an issue with the atmosphere, then what do we do about that? Because I think we've struggled for a while.
Yeah, answers on a postcard, people. I would love to hear what people think of that home atmosphere. We're not there every week. I'll put that out on the Twitter feed this week, actually, and see if we can get some people to talk about it, and hopefully even get somebody on next week and they can talk about it on the show. Just to how they feel about it would be good. Because like you say, it's definitely an issue, something we've had for a while. So I'd be intrigued to see what people at the ground feel like, especially after next week. Because this week it was like a library. And obviously that needs to be better. So we'll see.
Good. Otherwise, I don't have anything else. Let's hope for a better performance. That's all I'm asking for. It's just a better performance.
Yeah, bad day at the office all round. As I said, this is a snapshot of a moment that was one that we desperately want to forget. I think you said a snapshot of like a moment in time, which was beautifully worded. And we just move on. Villa away this weekend coming up. Let's just stay safe until then and see what we get presented with at the Amex a week from now.
Excellent.
All right, guys.
Thanks so much.